President Cyril Ramaphosa has promised several summits to address South Africa's economic woes when he became the president of the country. Last week, we concluded the Jobs Summit. At the end of the month, the much-touted Investment Summit kicks off shortly after the new Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, delivers his first medium-term budget policy statement. Well, joining us now to look at whether this intervention will do the trick and how the summit is meant to attract and stimulate our economy. I'm joined by my panel. First up is Tanya Cohen. She's, of course, the CEO at BUSA. Thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And then, of course, we've also got one of the president's investment envoys, Mr. Jaco Maria, and, of course, he's the former, CEO of Standard Bank. Did I get that right? Yes, absolutely. And then in Cape Town, I'm joined by Dr. Iraj Abedian, who is our economist this evening, speaking to us about some of the plans that are being placed on the table. Iraj, good evening. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good evening to you and panel.
Peter, I'm going to give you the first bite.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, all right. Well, then it's not really fair. But Jaco Marie, thank you, and thank you everybody for joining us. You know, we've got an investment summit. You're actually at the sharp end of this. You're out there helping President Ramaphosa put together a very ambitious $100 billion worth of investments. What's it like out there? I mean, are people listening to our story? Have we got a story to tell?
Of course we do, Peter. But I think you've got to see this over the time frame of 5 years, which is what the target of $100 billion or 1.5 trillion rand is about. And this summit that's coming up is a first very important step in the process. Right. The obvious thing to do, which is what we've been doing, is to talk to companies that already have some interest in South Africa. We're not going out there trying to convince people who've never been to South Africa to invest here. We're talking to the big established multinationals that are here. Of course, we're also talking to the locals, because the locals have to provide at least half of the money that we're talking about. When you talk to foreigners, they tend to say, we want to follow the locals.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they also say, we want to benefit from South Africa's growth, not create it.
Yeah.
I think that's such an important point that you're making there, Jaco, the confidence amongst local investors. Before we continue the conversation, which of course will then have to shift to Tanya, let's listen to Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, speaking about what he wants out of this summit.
I have appointed 4 investment envoys to go right across the world, to go and campaign for investments for our country, because once again South Africa is truly open for investments. We expect that investors from other Commonwealth countries will be prominent among those participating at the conference that we're going to call, and that it will include several of the people attending the Commonwealth Business Forum.
And of course, that's the big issue. It's one thing to get the big multinationals here, but they follow local sentiment. Local sentiment has come under pressure. Some people are saying that you don't show enough confidence in the economy. Is that a fair criticism?
So I think we are our worst critics, but I think that what we've also seen in the last few months is a lot of positive progress that is signaling to South African business community that the economy is being turned around and that government is listening seriously to our concerns. So if we look at the continuum of processes that we've been engaged in, we've had the economic stimulus package, which has been announced. We had the Jobs Summit. And now we're moving towards the investment conference. And really, a lot of the issues that we've been raising as business as concerns are being reinforced through those processes. Initially, we were quite concerned that there was a lack of alignment, but that has improved considerably. And we certainly are seeing that government is hearing us.
Because Iraj Abedian, the sort of current sort of narrative, I hate that word, but anyway, is that the South African business is on an investment strike, and that you know, there's this huge pile of money somewhere that could be invested but isn't being because, you know, business is recalcitrant or, you know, capital is bad or whatever it might be. And I could ask this of anybody on this panel. What is the answer to that? I mean, is there a strike, or are people just waiting for the right kind of atmosphere and opportunity to begin investing again?
Peter, I think from my point of view, business people and capitalists go every day to work to find investment opportunities. Capitalists who go to work to strike are not capitalists, and business people who do not investigate opportunities for expanding their businesses or finding new businesses are not business people. So I think this narrative of capital being on a strike or business people are being on a strike is totally convoluted, and in a way avoids dealing with the real issues. Different sectors in South Africa face different uncertainties. For example, mining, industrial sector or industrial investment, agriculture, each one of them has got different problems. We know the recent one in agriculture and agri-processing is the land issue. But even before the land issue, the issues of medium to long-term water supply is not clear. We've had the national water infrastructure destroyed by the previous minister. That has to be dealt with. It's got nothing to do with business. Mining sector requires reliable, globally competitive energy supply. We know the energy, not just Eskom, the entire energy policy has been, and it still remains to some extent, very, very uncertain. How do you invest if you don't have security of supply of energy at a globally competitive and reliable basis? How do you invest if the water supply is not in place, and so on and so forth? So I think we need to, as a nation, make each sector investment ready, which means looking at not just policy issues, but also logistical requirements that remains essential for long-term investment.
Okay.
Let's take one sector, the question of land. I mean, Jaco, you've been one of the envoys. You've been going around the world. It's been a question that's been raised. It's been an issue that has been concerning a number of people. The government has gone to great lengths to try and assure everyone that this will happen in a rules-based way. It's not going to be amounting to land grabs. In fact, just today, President Cyril Ramaphosa handed over land in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's have a listen to what happened in that community and talk about how this impacts on the message that you have to take outside.
This community can be exemplary to other recipients of land through the active participation in the administration of funds that are received through the Palane Trust. Now, I was told about the Palane Trust. Uguti isizwe sakamkhwanazi kahle kahle saqalwa oPhalane, and namhlanje we are highlighting the importance of the origins of the Mkhwanazi people. Ukuthi we are recognizing uPhalane, and through the trust we are going to use this trust to good effect and make sure that it benefits all. The Mkhwanazi land recipients through the Palane Trust currently own sugarcane enterprises and the Forestry Inn Hotel that operate on behalf of the community, and we encourage this type of entrepreneurship.
Now, that's, of course, the president going to local communities. He's very much in election mode also, but it's an issue that obviously cannot be ignored. Do you think that we're doing enough to reassure those who are worried that we're not going to be doing what Zimbabwe has done, that we are going to be looking at it within the context of creating a value chain for an economic stimulus, that this is not just about dishing out tracts of land and nothing else is going to happen afterwards, Jaco?
Yes, I think, you know, that most people that follow South Africa and understand South Africa are sympathetic. Everyone accepts that there has to be land reform in some shape or form. But of course, if you are looking to invest money, you tend to, you don't have to do it today. You can hold back, you can do it next year.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people would tend to, perhaps from abroad, say, well, let's wait until this matter's been cleared up. So it slows the process down. Having said that, I don't think in the people that I've spoken to, if people are looking at building a factory, that they're not fearing that their factory is going to be taken away without compensation. But if you're going into the agricultural business or looking at agro-processing, it's something that would concern you. How is this going to actually be resolved? I think the statements that the President has put out, he wrote a very good article in the Financial Times under his own name, which was republished in the local press, stating very clearly what his intentions are. And I think those intentions are sensible, and most people accept that. But unfortunately, as Raj also saying, uncertainty doesn't help. And people want certainty, and they want certainty for a period of time. It's not just for now. They want to know that for the next 10 years, these are the rules.
Well, you know, and I'll ask this of anybody, but Tanya Cohen, let me start with you. I mean, there's a funny feeling in South Africa at the moment. I mean, you know, people are leaving the country in droves. If you've got young kids, Australia, England, anywhere is better than South Africa. And there's this kind of, you know, there's a real sort of gloom about the place, really. And it's not necessarily anybody's fault, anybody in government now, but it's where it is what it is. And how do you get, I guess the same question asked a different way, how do you get somebody, and Jacko, you've been lending money to people to invest all your life. How do you get somebody to put down 20 million rand investments in South Africa? Not just because of the land issue, but just because where are we at the moment? What's happening? You know, it cost me 1,000 rand the other day to fill the tank of my small little half-ton bakkie.
Yeah. So I think first of all on the land issue is that there is uncertainty from a policy perspective, not just about land, it's about property. So the sooner that we get an outcome of that constitutional review process in Parliament, the better that will be in our view, because we really do need to move forward in that regard. As BUSA, we don't think that a constitutional change is necessary, and we don't think it's wise. But if there is going to be a constitutional change, let that happen quickly so that we've got certainty and we know the frameworks and the parameters. In terms of what else can be done, though, we think that there's been immense progress in the last few months in the agricultural sector. We've seen a lot of engagement between the President and government with the sector, and they're feeling far more confident that a lot of the solutions they're putting on the table, whether it be from a financing point of view, whether it be from a licensing point of view, water licenses, whether it be from a regulatory point of view, that those type of challenges are going to be dealt with in a way that actually brings the sector closer and makes sure that it is productive and that it creates jobs. So we think that that's a good way to manage that. Having said that, one of the things that the sector is really indicating is very troubling, and we're hearing this in many of our sectors, is what's happening at a municipal level. Yes. Be it the cost of electricity, the supply of electricity, and water in particular. So we think there's a lot of work to be done in that regard.
In fact, Iraj, this is a good point to bring you in. You were making the point the last time you were on the show that different sectors need different kinds of certainties. Tanya's mentioned municipalities. The other big sector, of course, is also mining. Now, we saw the charter issue being concluded, but do you think that Gwede Mantashe has gone far enough to give people in the mining sector, which still plays a huge role in our economy, the kind of certainty that they're looking for, where they think South Africa is a place that they need to come and invest in?
I think Minister Mantashe has done about 80% of the job. There are still issues outstanding. But those issues don't affect, from a policy point of view, they don't affect investment decisions. The mining sector in South Africa at the moment is hamstrung, not just by policy, by electricity reliability, by water, and very importantly, by administrative lack of capacity and administrative sabotage that some municipalities and some provincial governments do. Things take forever. Earlier on, Peter was talking to the minister about the tourists that come to South Africa, try to get a license from a municipality or from a provincial government to rectify something which is in their constitutional domain or is in the domain of intergovernmental coordination. It takes forever. For example, SLPs, which requires local authorities working with the mining houses to get housing licenses in place so that mining companies keep their license in place. Try it. It's impossible. And I can tell you from experience that some of these municipalities are sabotaging economic investment. And this is something that Jacko and his team need to convey to the president that it is not just about policy uncertainty, it's about lack of administrative capability at various spheres of government to enable investments to flow and to be competitive.
Now, because the real point, just from the local authority point,
yes,
is if you invest in this country, you're not investing in South Africa, you're investing in a local authority. That's where you're investing.
Yeah. And of course, we saw in the papers, Peter, the minister responsible for municipalities, the COGTA minister, Dr. William Kize, being completely flabbergasted by the lack of capacity, and of course also just the fact that you have, in a case like VBS, municipalities doing business in a patently illegal manner. So we often look at state capture kind of at a national level, but we haven't looked at the damage that is actually done at municipalities and what it does to ordinary businesses.
Absolutely. So I think if you look at the electricity crisis, is that we've got a situation now where between the regulator, between Eskom and between the municipalities, there isn't a supply of electricity in a number of municipalities that's secured, both for business and for the community. And those are serious issues that we need to unlock. But I think it doesn't stop at the local level. If one looks, for example, at other sectors, so we've seen, for example, the health sector. Now, this week there's a presidential health summit that's going to be convened looking at the public sector in particular.
Yes.
But if you look at the skills constraints in the health sector, you look at the process constraints in terms of how does one actually get the license to train people, to operate, the amount of time that it takes to authorize a medicine for production locally, those type of issues could really unlock investment if they were resolved.
To what extent is the private sector able to help government with actual people? In other words, put people into departments that are struggling, put people into municipalities that are struggling, second engineers or accountants to get things right?
It's not something that I'm close to at the moment, but I think there have been many examples where BUSA, business leadership, have tried to mobilize resources where required. I think the first big thing is to understand and accept that you need skills, and often these skills are people perhaps that have retired, that can be reused, and I guess we should be looking at all of those opportunities, because experience is something that is so hard to replace. When you look at some of our big state-owned corporations,
you can't get instantly.
If you look at the big state-owned corporations, it's all very well to fix the top, but what about all the technical people that have left and so on? So we need to replace and bolster those in the short term, because when you talk to foreign investors, it's not just fixing the state-owned corporations, it's what's the price of electricity here compared to Brazil? What's the price of rail transport? What's the price of port tariffs? Becoming competitive.
We're literally out of time, but Iraj, I want to raise this with you because you took a very strong point on this matter. We see in the VBS mess, particularly when it comes to municipalities, again, KPMG culpable. So it's all well and good to say, okay, bring people from the private sector. But if your auditors, if your accountants are not holding the line and presenting books that are a genuine reflection of the financial health of municipalities, how does that help you? And what kind of sanction do we need to bring in there to get the private sector, when they do get involved in work with government, to not act in a corrupt manner?
I think it's a very important point, given at the moment the hype around investment. When these audit companies or advisory companies, whether it's Bain & Co. or it's McKinsey or whoever, and a lot of advisory work of the local or subnational level, provincial and local government, comes from the audit companies. The minute that these guys hear investment, they see big money coming on the advisory side, simply because they know that government structures do not have their in-house capacity. So the terms on which such advisory is provided, the framework within which is given, is absolutely critical. Otherwise, we're going to spend or lose hundreds of billions of rand this time around in the name of supporting government institutions who do not have a capacity. Look how much McKinsey stole out of Eskom in the name of private business or private sector providing advisory services. Absolutely. Look how much S&P, the German software company, has taken literally looted some parastatals in the name of private sector bringing capacity. So capacity is important, the skills are important, but the framework within which and the terms on which such secondment takes place or such services are provided, absolutely critical for getting value for money.
Peter, I'm going to give you the final word and to do the
Just
thanks.
The last question to Jacka Marie. Is the president easy to talk to? Does he listen to you when you meet him? You're one of his envoys. You've got things to tell him. Are you able to? Is there an easy rapport between all of you envoys? And secondly, lastly, did he make the right choice choosing Tito Mboweni as finance minister? Do you think?
On the first one, I think it's really wonderful to have an open relationship. You can say exactly what you want to the president when you get to speak to him, and he listens. And part of our job is to convey the feelings of investors about our country, and a lot of that are problems, and conveying those problems. And he definitely listens, and we've seen quite a lot of action as a result. So I'm very encouraged by that, and I think my fellow envoys would feel the same way. In relation to the former governor, Mboweni, I think he's eminently qualified for the job. He's tough. He's extremely experienced in all the international aspects of finance and so on, and I'm sure he'll be able to say no when certain other ministers, need to be told no.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps it up for us. Thank you to our panel, Iraj, Tanya, Jaco. Thank you so very much. That about brings it to the close. You've had your fix for the week. Take care and good night.